The sky burned as alien ships cut through the atmosphere, their plasma cannons crackled with energy, and the world below trembled at the sight of their power. They thought it would be quick and easy, the invasion would be over before the humans even knew what hit them. Cities lay in ruin, their inhabitants unaware of the fate that had befallen them. But the humans were not like any other species they had faced before. In the chaos of destruction, humanity did not cower or beg for mercy. Instead, they moved with a purpose. The air was thick with tension as the alien forces descended. They expected a population to scatter in fear or beg for their lives. But what they saw was something entirely different. People stood tall in the streets, not running but preparing. Humanity had faced worse in their history. They had seen plagues, wars, and famine, and still they endured. Now they faced an enemy with technology far beyond their own, yet they did not flinch. The plasma fire lit up the skies like fireworks. But the humans were not blinded by it. They had already set their plans into motion. Underground bunkers began to hum with energy, hidden weapon caches unlocked, and humanity's resistance surged into action. They had known this day would come. Their leaders had prepared them for it for years. They gathered their strength in secret, honing their skills and their technology, knowing that one day they would face something much greater than themselves. And when that day came, they would not fold, they would not bow, they would fight back. As the alien fleet began its bombardment, the human response was swift. They fired back with weapons that had been designed specifically for this moment. High-powered railguns sent massive projectiles tearing through the air, while laser cannons blasted holes through the invaders' shields. Human fighters took to the skies in ships modified from civilian crafts, and they met the alien warships in the air with firepower that surprised even the most battle-hardened of the invaders. The aliens had expected the human forces to be scattered, uncoordinated, but instead they faced a united front, a determined will. They struck with precision and deadly intent. Their attacks weren't wild or desperate. They were calculated. Every shot, every maneuver was executed with the cold efficiency of a species that had spent centuries battling for survival. The aliens had underestimated the humans. They thought their superior technology would overwhelm them. And for a moment, it seemed like it might, but humanity had something far more powerful than mere technology. They had heart, they had the spirit of those who had fought before them, and the knowledge that they could never allow themselves to be wiped out, not by plague, not by war, and certainly not by these invaders. For the first time, the aliens found themselves wondering if they had miscalculated in their quest for domination. They had struck Earth with plasma fire, expecting the humans to collapse under the pressure. But the humans did not break, they did not flee, they met the invaders head-on. And in that moment, the aliens realized something terrifying. The humans were not only fighting for survival, they were fighting for something much greater than themselves. They were fighting for the future they would never let fall into the hands of their oppressors. And that was something the invaders did not know how to fight against. The battle raged on for days, the alien forces relentless in their attempts to crush humanity's resolve. But the humans refused to break. Their tactics were unconventional and unpredictable. Their resistance spread like wildfire across the globe. Every corner of Earth became a battleground, from towering cities to hidden mountain strongholds. The humans fought not with overwhelming numbers or firepower, but with something far more dangerous, their will to survive. The invaders had learned quickly that no matter how many cities they destroyed, no matter how many lives they took, the humans kept coming back. Stronger, the aliens were used to seeing their enemies crumble beneath their weapons. But humanity was different. They adapted, they learned from their mistakes. And each time they were struck, they grew more determined. They were unlike anything the invaders had faced before. They had been expected to fall apart under the pressure, but instead they fought with the ferocity of creatures who knew that their very existence was at stake. The alien commanders grew frustrated. Their superior technology seemed to be ineffective against the human spirit. They began to question their assumptions about the Earthlings. Why weren't they retreating? Why weren't they pleading for mercy? Didn't they realize how outmatched they were? But the humans didn't need to realize it. They didn't need to acknowledge that they were outgunned, outclassed, and outnumbered, because it didn't matter. They had something far more important than weaponry. They had a history of survival. They had faced extinction before and come out stronger on the other side. When the aliens struck with their most powerful weapons, the humans adapted. When they sent in their best-trained soldiers, the humans fought back with guerrilla tactics, and sheer cunning. Their resistance movements became more coordinated as they understood the enemy's weaknesses. Their technology began to match the invaders blow for blow. The aliens were beginning to lose their grip on the situation, and they could sense the shift in momentum. They were no longer the predators, but the hunted. One night in a shattered city, the alien fleet prepared for a final assault. They had gathered all their resources for one decisive strike that would cripple humanity's resistance once and for all. They thought this would be the end of the human struggle, but as they launched their attack, they were met with something they didn't expect: a counteroffensive so well planned, it seemed like the humans had been waiting for this moment from the beginning. Fighter ships dove into the heart of the alien fleet, intercepting their fire and dismantling their shields. Human soldiers on the ground launched coordinated strikes against the invaders' command centers and communication hubs. They were everywhere. The aliens couldn't escape the web that the humans had woven around them. And when the dust settled, the invaders realized the humans had turned their weaknesses into strengths. What they saw was a force that would not be defeated, a force that would never surrender, no matter how many times they were struck, no matter how many plasma storms tore through their cities. Humanity stood tall and defiant, their spirit unbroken. The aliens began to realize the full extent of their mistake. They had underestimated the humans. They had assumed that advanced technology would be enough to crush them, but they had failed to understand the most dangerous weapon of all: the human will to survive. And with each passing day, it became clearer: the longer they fought, the harder the humans would become to stop. The aliens had captured several human prisoners in the wake of their failed assaults. They thought they could break them through interrogation and force these humans to reveal the secrets behind their unexpected resilience. But every time they tried to force answers, they found themselves frustrated. The humans were tight-lipped, their expressions stoic and unyielding. No matter how much pain or fear was inflicted on them, they refused to break it. Confused, the invaders. How could these weak, fragile beings survive against their superior weapons? How could they be so relentless when all their technology was nothing compared to the firepower the aliens wielded? They expected the humans to cower in fear, to beg for mercy, but instead they were met with defiance. In one of the alien holding cells, a human soldier sat chained to a cold metallic chair. The alien interrogator stood in front of him with a cruel smirk, thinking that this time they would finally break him. The alien demanded to know the human's secret. What made them so powerful, so able to fight against insurmountable odds? The human soldier didn't say a word. He only stared at the interrogator with a steady gaze. Something that unnerved the alien more than anything else was as if he could see through the alien's every move. The alien repeated his question with more intensity, his voice rising in anger, but the soldier still didn't answer. Instead, he spoke of something the aliens didn't understand. He spoke of Earth. The invaders had no interest in Earth's history or culture. They saw it as a primitive backwater planet with no real value. But the soldier's words were powerful and full of conviction. He told the alien about humanity's past, how they had fought wars against each other and against nature, how they had survived plagues and natural disasters, how they had been knocked down time and time again, but had always found a way to rise again. With every loss, with every failure, humanity had learned and grown stronger. He spoke of the spirit of survival that was embedded in every human heart, of the unity that had allowed them to overcome even the most impossible odds. The alien interrogator was taken aback by the soldier's words. He had expected to hear weakness, fear, or despair, but instead he was confronted with something far more unsettling, something he could not comprehend. The soldier's eyes burned with a fierce fire that was not easily extinguished. The alien commanders had never encountered a race like this before, and it unsettled them. They had believed their technology and their power were enough to crush any opposition, but this human spirit was something they could not destroy. No matter how many cities they obliterated or soldiers they killed, the humans kept fighting. They kept coming back, and it was becoming clear that the invaders were not dealing with a species willing to accept defeat. The human soldier's silence spoke volumes more than any words ever could. The alien understood now that humanity wasn't fighting to survive. They were fighting to protect everything they had built. They were fighting for their future, their families, their planet. And as the alien watched the soldier, the true depth of the situation began to sink in. Humanity was not only more dangerous than they had realized, they were unbreakable. They had the power to endure and adapt, no matter what was thrown at them. And the alien began to feel a sense of dread, something they had never felt before, against the might of humanity's spirit. No weapon, no strategy would ever be enough to defeat them. The alien commanders gathered in their war room, their faces twisted with frustration. They had underestimated the humans at every turn. They had thought they could break their spirit through sheer force. They had assumed their technology would be the end of these weak beings. But instead, they were the ones being forced to retreat. The battlefield was no longer in their control. The humans had learned to adapt to every attack. They had taken what the invaders threw at them and turned it back against them. Their guerrilla tactics had become more refined, their technology more advanced each day. The aliens faced more and more setbacks. Each mission became more dangerous, and each battle was harder to win. The humans had found ways to disrupt their communications, sever their supply lines, and turn their weapons against them. The invaders now found themselves fighting a battle they couldn't win. The turning point came when the humans finally cracked the alien technology they had been scavenging from their fallen foes. The first sign of it came when human soldiers in a far-off desert region intercepted a high-ranking alien commander's transmission. The transmission was meant to give orders for a major assault, but the humans had infiltrated the system and turned the message into an ambush. The alien commander's fleet arrived at what they thought would be a secure location, but instead, they were met with a barrage of laser fire and railgun blasts. The alien ships were taken by surprise. Their shields weren't enough to withstand the concentrated human firepower. Within moments, the tide of the battle turned. The aliens were forced to retreat as their ships were torn apart in the atmosphere. And for the first time in this war, the humans felt like they had an upper hand. They had struck a blow to the invaders that sent shockwaves through their ranks. They were no longer the underdog. They were the predators, and the aliens were the prey. Back on Earth, the human resistance continued to grow stronger. They found ways to strike at the heart of the alien forces. While the invaders struggled to maintain their grip on the planet, they had underestimated the resilience of the human will. Now they were facing a unified front. They had thought the humans would fold under pressure, but what they had failed to understand was that every attack, every loss only fueled the fire within them. Humanity did not break. They only became more determined, more creative in their fight for survival. They had spent centuries learning how to fight through the worst circumstances, and now they were applying all of that knowledge to a single purpose: to push the invaders off their world. On the battlefield, the humans were everywhere. They had spread like a virus across the globe. The alien invaders could no longer ignore the fact that they were being beaten by a species they had considered weak. Their weapons no longer held the same power they once did. The alien fleets were being picked apart by a relentless force. The invaders' confidence had begun to erode. They had struck with everything they had, expecting Earth's defenders to crumble under the weight of their firepower. But the humans did not crumble. They did not bend to their will. Instead, they rose with a fury that shook the very core of the invaders' belief in their own superiority. The aliens had learned a hard truth: they had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. As the alien leaders tried to regroup and reassess their strategy, they realized with mounting horror that the longer they fought, the stronger the humans became. They were no longer facing a struggling species on the brink of extinction. They were facing an unstoppable force, one that would never stop fighting until their planet was free. The invaders had been outmatched, not by technology, not by numbers, but by something far more terrifying: the human spirit. The final days of the invasion began to unfold in a blur of chaos and desperation. The alien fleet was falling apart. Their command structure was fractured, and their once advanced technology was now proving ineffective against the humans' relentless onslaught. Humanity had adapted in ways that the invaders couldn't have anticipated. They had turned every alien weapon they captured into a tool of their own survival, and now the alien fleet was suffering the consequences as human forces moved in for the kill. Every ship that tried to escape was met with a barrage of missiles and railgun blasts. As if the humans had been waiting for this moment, their fighters darted through the skies like swarming insects, tearing through the hulls of alien warships with deadly precision. No longer were they running from the invaders, now it was the aliens who were running for their lives. On the ground, human forces launched their final assault against the invaders' last strongholds. They had gathered their remaining forces for this one last push, knowing that if they didn't end the war now, they risked losing everything. With the enemy's command structure in disarray, the humans were able to infiltrate and destroy the remaining alien supply lines. As their forces crumbled, the aliens attempted to deploy their doomsday weapon, a final desperate measure meant to obliterate humanity once and for all. This weapon was their ace in the hole. It was capable of destroying entire continents and wiping Earth from existence. They had kept it hidden deep within their main base, hoping it would be the key to their victory. Now they had no choice but to unleash it. But the humans were ready. Their spies had infiltrated the alien ranks months ago, and they knew exactly where the weapon was being held. In a series of daring raids, the resistance captured the command center for the doomsday device. They worked quickly to disable the countdown, but the aliens would not go down without a fight. The remaining soldiers launched a last-ditch effort to protect the weapon. As the humans approached the base, the battle became intense, with plasma fire cutting through the air and explosions rocking the ground. But the humans kept pushing forward. Their resolve was unshakable. They were not going to let this weapon end everything they had fought for. As the final assault continued, the humans finally reached the control room. The alien guards fell one by one, and the device's countdown timer ticked down dangerously close to zero. With seconds to spare, the human soldiers disabled the countdown. The entire complex shook with a deafening roar as the power systems were severed. The weapon was rendered useless, and the alien forces knew they had lost their last hope. As their ultimate weapon fell silent, the invaders realized they were finished. The human resistance had prevailed against all odds. The aliens had brought their best technology, their most destructive force, but none of it could break the human spirit. No matter how hard they tried, no matter how many plasma blasts they fired, the humans had shown that they could not be defeated. With the doomsday device now neutralized, the remaining alien forces scattered in all directions, fleeing back into space, leaving Earth behind them. Defeated and broken, as they retreated, the humans stood victorious on their home soil. They had driven the invaders away, not with superior firepower, but with unyielding determination. With every ounce of their being, they had fought for the survival of their species, for their future, for their planet. And in the end, it was that spirit that triumphed over all. As the dust settled and the last of the alien ships disappeared from view, humanity stood united. Their world was forever changed, but they had proven something to the stars, that they would never back down, they would never flinch. No matter what came for them, they would fight to the last breath. And no force in the universe could ever take that away from them.